OnePlus Nord is actually the most practical smartphone you can put your money in right now, even with all the compromises that's seemingly in there compared against the flagship OnePlus phones, of course. But despite all that, OnePlus has managed to keep the experience of using the OnePlus Nord largely similar to using any other OnePlus smartphone, like the OnePlus 8 for that matter. And it gets a lot of things right, including a perfectly smooth, usable interface, a compact form factor, and more importantly, it's a phone that just works. Among the many things that makes the OnePlus Nord a great smartphone to use, in this video we're going to look at the camera in detail. And this is one place where OnePlus claims a lot when it was building up the hype for this phone, but there's not much to see on paper. I mean, there are seemingly better smartphones like the Realme X3 Super Zoom, for example, which actually competes with the Nord head-on basis the price. But then again, a good camera is not just the hardware that's inside. The final JPEG output depends on the sensors in place, the ISP behind it, as well as the software and the algorithms working their magic in the background. So is the OnePlus Nord camera dependable, or is it going to let you down when you're trying to take that trick shot? Let's find out. Before we get to the samples, let's see how the OnePlus Nord shapes up on paper. It has the Sony IMX586 48 megapixel sensor as the primary camera. It's actually the same sensor which was used in the OnePlus 7 and the 7T series, and more recently on the OnePlus 8 as well. So it's something that OnePlus knows how to tune and optimize. Then there's another 8 megapixel ultra-wide lens with autofocus and two 2 megapixel cameras for macro and portrait shots. How does it perform? The OnePlus Nord's 48 megapixel camera's output is largely similar to that of the OnePlus 8. The details and dynamic range is very similar, but the color output looks ever so slightly better on the OnePlus 8. The Realme X3 Super Zoom makes things a lot more dramatic with saturated colors, while the OnePlus 8 Pro keeps things calm and composed and is actually the best of the lot. The IMX586 is clearly no match for the 48 megapixel on the 8 Pro. It's a larger sensor, but it's actually impressive to see the Nord maintaining the quality of the OnePlus 8 at least. The OnePlus Nord has the same nightscape mode that's there on the OnePlus 8 and the 8 Pro, but the results are largely different. The Nord lets you shoot in nightscape mode from both the ultra-wide and primary cameras, but it's better to stick to the primary cameras for the best results. The nightscape mode also takes more time than the others. So if you're shooting, say, a flower at night that's moving due to the wind, your shot will be blurry. But when the object is static, the shots are rather nice. There's no noticeable noise on the display, the brightness is expectedly tuned higher, and it's fairly sharp if you don't zoom in. The 8 megapixel ultra-wide lens on the OnePlus Nord isn't all that bad, even though it's not as powerful as the 48 megapixel shooter on the 8 Pro. Side by side, it performs noticeably better than the Realme X3 Super Zoom's ultra-wide camera, but once again, it's very similar to what you see on the OnePlus 8. Now, going up close, the OnePlus Nord is actually quite reliable if you don't turn on the macro mode. The Nord gets the color and the focus right using the primary camera, while the Realme X3's color looked just off here. However, the details are better on the X3 largely because of the 64 megapixel camera. The OnePlus 8 Pro turns on macro mode automatically when it's going close, and the result is actually the best of the lot. The OnePlus Nord lacks a dedicated zoom lens, and the result is expectedly far better on the Realme X3 Super Zoom with its 5x periscope lens. Even the OnePlus 8 and the 8 Pro offers better details when you're zooming in than the Nord here. Shooting faces are tricky, but given enough light, the Nord gets the facial details spot on. The portrait mode tends to soften details a bit, but when held up close, it gets the details just right. However, when you're using the portrait mode in a setting where there's not much light, you can expect a lot of noise in the photo. The OnePlus Nord also does not come with 4K video at 60 frames per second yet. OnePlus says this is because of a thermal issue they're facing, and once they manage to tame it, the feature will arrive via an update. There's the usual hyperlapse and slow-mo modes, both of which work well enough given enough light. The focus is also better than the OnePlus 8 Pro and stays consistent with movement. The camera hardware on the OnePlus Nord isn't anything new or groundbreaking like the Realme X3 Super Zoom or the OnePlus 8 Pro. Instead, the spec sheet on this one is far more subdued, much like the OnePlus 8. But then again, despite all its shortcomings, the images themselves come out looking pretty consistent and reliable, which is something I can't really say about the Realme X3 Super Zoom, which despite having seemingly better hardware, it tends to overprocess photos much to its own detriment. In fact, the OnePlus Nord's camera output is very similar to that of the OnePlus 8, and that's actually a very good thing considering this one's 10,000 bucks cheaper. But then again, the OnePlus Nord is not for you if you're looking for a flagship camera experience. That's just not happening. It's still strictly mid-range, but it is dependable. And on that note, it's time to end this video. Let us know what you thought of the OnePlus Nord camera in the comment section below and show us some love and subscribe to Digit.in. Thank you.